गिरीश जी, गुड आफ्टरनून, नमस्कार। और काफ़ी दिनों बाद मुलाकात हो रही है एक बार फिर। लास्ट टाइम आपको याद होगा हमने अडानी और हिंडनबर्ग रिपोर्ट के ऊपर एक वीडियो बनाया था जिसमें आपने कहा था एज ए पॉसिबल कॉन्सिक्वेंस क्या होगा कि जो इंडियन कंपनीज इंटरनेशनल मार्केट से जो बोरो करती हैं वो बोरोइंग अभी कॉस्टली होने वाली है और वो डिफिकल्ट हो जाएगी बिकॉज ऑफ हिंडनबर्ग रिपोर्ट। अब वो राइटली और रॉन्गली वट एवर, बट दैट वाज द जनरल इंटरप्रिटेशन। तो मैं चाहता हूं कि आज आप एक तो इस विषय में बात करें और उसके बाद ऑफ कोर्स हम क्रेडिट स्विस और बाकी उसकी भी बात करेंगे जो अमेरिका में दो बैंक्स हैं जो फेल हुए हैं। आफ्टर ऑल ये इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस, बैंकिंग क्राइसिस कहाँ जाके रुकेगा, क्या होगा और इंडिया को कितना खतरा है? सो ओवर टू यू।
Afternoon, Kanna sir, and to all our viewers. If you remember, one of the point which I highlighted in our last interview, which is more than a month back after Hindenburg report, uh, apart from the impact which it was having on Hindenburg, I highlighted that major impact will be on the companies who are going to borrow money from the international market. Now, I briefly like to touch upon why companies goes out to borrow from the international market. The reason is very simple. All our major companies, or we can say top companies of India or the second layer companies also, they need a lot of investment cash for their business and other thing, financing. Indian financing is at higher rate of interest than compared to Europe and US. So
जी।
it is a common practice to borrow from the market where the rate of interest are lower. And it is a right thing also because once you are competing in the international market, you have to match their competitive price. So one of the financing cost of the any business which we are doing in India, it also has to be in competition with the companies which are operating from Europe, US, and other China and other area. So their financing cost has to be low. So they borrow it from the overseas market. Now, second part is many of their requirement is in the dollar or euro. So it is easier for them to take it loan directly in dollar or euro terms to avoid exchange rate and other thing. It's a very good practice and this is practice followed worldwide. Now, rate of interest which countries or companies get is depending upon the rating of the country and the company given by the rating agency like CRISIL and Swiss rating and all other many Fitch, Moody, which they give rating. Now, it is a very interesting topic, how they give rating, but today let's not discuss onto that, how they arrive and why there is a difference when they are giving rating to Asian companies versus European and under the same terms and means criteria, if we say benchmark, if we count it, but that's a different topic. Now comes to this particular point. If you read today's economics time, I am referring what we discussed a month back, and I am giving you today's means today's time when Vedanta is going and looking for a $1 billion or around so loan from the US and other European market, and they are talking to the various banks. So normally the rate which were expected is on the LIBOR was the earlier standard, but due to some scandal and their operating basis, it was questioned. So
ओके।
now SOFR is the standard which is coming, and slowly by June, LIBOR will be replaced by the SOFR. Now, what is SOFR? Is the secured overnight financing rate.
ओके।
Okay, so this is a published by Fed Reserve New York branch. Every day they declare. Now I'll give you, this is this SOFR is a normal term like repo rate which we discuss. Now repo rate is basically a central bank which is giving lending money to the commercial bank in that country at a certain rate.
बिल्कुल।
So in India it is 6.50%. Like Reserve Bank of India, if any commercial bank want to take money from Reserve Bank of India, so they have to pay 6.5% as of today in February 23. And reverse repo rate is when bank give this money to or lend this money with RBI or the central bank of that country. So which is normally 0.5% lower than that thing. or maybe higher, difference may be more. Now, what is happening when Vedanta is going, they were having a standard, what was the earlier practice was SOFR plus 300 paisa point or 250 paisa point they were considering. But to their surprise, the bank with whom they are discussing now, they are asking SOFR plus 850 basis point BPS, which is
Okay.
much higher than what was normal practice is. So this is one of the repercussion of such kind of a report which is having and companies are finding. Now, why company, as we discussed, why do they need it? But at the same time, why it is happening is because from the last 1 year or so, after quantum easy, which earlier during COVID and around that time, let's say Fed and European Union and also in India, rate of interest was lowered to certain extent so that people or the companies which are facing problem due to COVID and other thing, they should get interest free or almost interest free loan. So there the rate of interest was almost nil. You will be
Okay.
surprised. Let me just give you one number. Today, SFR rate in US is 4.5%.
Okay.
4.55%, which is very high. Now, can you imagine what was the rate a year back? Just imagine a number, any number you can guess. What could be?
Must be around 2.5 or something.
No, the rate was 0.05%.
My God. Hmm.
So this was the situation a year back. And in a year time, the rate has gone from 0.05% to 4.55%.
Oh.
And the current trend is such that all Europe and US is facing a very high inflation. So they are having a very, taken a stand that inflation is our first enemy and we have to curtail it by taking out money which they have earlier printed and given in to all these things which is happening. So this is the side effect of that quantum is that now all industries, all companies and everybody is facing. Now this is what Fed give. Now when the banks give it further to loan to the other industries, they add their own margin and other things, which goes much beyond. So that's why when Vedanta is asking, so they have to pay 8% higher than or 4% higher than what was the bank to bank rate is.
एक बात तो बताओ, इसमें जो बेसिकली जो हिंडनबर्ग की रिपोर्ट थी और जो ये अडानी वाला हुआ, उसकी वजह से भी जो इंडियन कंपनीज को बोरोइंग में जैसे वेदांता भी बोरोइंग कर रही है, उसकी वजह से ये रेट बढ़ा है क्या, या वो भी एक फैक्टर है?
Sir, we will not say it is because of Hindenburg report,
Okay.
but overall companies, without naming specifically, they have changed ratings for case to case. Now, for example, since you have raised this point, when these reports and other thing has come, Credit Suisse has given a 0 rate for lending against the bonds of Adani Group.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
what does it mean? Means Adani, which they were having a bonds, which is available in the US and Europe market. Credit Suisse has said for them it is 0 value, means they will not loan against those bonds. So this was the impact of those report. And similarly, they were giving such a harsh treatment to the many other companies.
Okay.
So this is the impact on that. Now, what will happen to this? Because once the bonds values rate has come down, the company will find it very difficult to take a loan. So automatically, when they go out for the loan against that their business model and other thing, rate of interest goes up, and there are not many buyers for those bonds against which they take a loan.
Okay.
So this is an impact. Now, another point which we have to consider or we have to see, that of inflation and other things. From that point of view, India is doing much better. Let me tell you, Governor Dr. Samanta Das, he's doing much better than many other banks or central banks which they are doing. And their rate of interest, or let us say, Europe and US has never seen such a high inflation, because normally they were in less than 2 to 3% range of inflation. But first time after Ukraine-USS war, they are facing in double digits. And that was the reason they are finding it much difficult to control inflation, and they have gone all out to increase rate of interest and other thing. Whereas India, we have seen 6 to 8% is not a very high number inflation which we have seen. So we are taking it in a different way vis-a-vis Europe and US. So our rate of interest is handled in a much better way comparatively to US and Europe. So
ओके
RBI is doing much better handling than others.
ओके
Now
अभी
I will have
आप उस पॉइंट पे आ सकते हो अभी आप जो आप कह रहे हैं ना दोनों बैंक्स का और जो क्रेडिट स्विस वाला वो वाला इशू
okay. So now you must have seen there is a recent Silicon Valley Bank which was in news for wrong reason. Just a month before, it has been rated one of the best bank in the US, and then within a month's time, it has bankrupted, or you can say it is closed down. It is a different thing that it is one of the best bank at that time, and they were known for lending to the startup, technical startup, which was in San Francisco. And many Indian startups were taking loan from them. And as of now, the rough report is approximately 60 or so more startups were having a dealing with SBO. And because of this problem, many are facing problem. And the limit, like in India, our insurance is 5 lakh rupees. In US, it is the limit is 250 $250,000.
ओके
So anything above that is not insured and those kind of a thing. But at the same time, the US has put a restriction that no overseas transaction, means any transaction which is now India and SBO they will not be able to remit money to India. It can only be done in US, but not outside US boundary. So this is another limitation. So many, approximately 2 dozen companies are having much above limits, maybe a millions of dollar kind of a thing, which has got stuck up with SBO. Now, another point, which is we have to see impact worldwide. Hindenburg report has impacted Adani and part of the Indian, companies, but it was say maybe 40-50 billion dollar. But this SBO alone and signature has wiped out more than 600 billion US dollar from the international market.
माय गॉड
Can you imagine? Now, it's not only the bank, it is the entire world market. 600 approximate, and this is a guess, first guess. I'm not telling the exact number because exact number will be known in couple of days. So this last 1 week, 600 billion US dollar has been wiped out from the market cap of the worldwide, out of which 400 billion dollar, I think probably is hit by the US, and remaining is worldwide, like India, China, Korea, and other countries. So one can understand banks, how much impact it can have vis-a-vis a company, because we should not equate company failure and the bank failure at the same level.
ओके
Why I'm telling this? Because it is the faith which get eroded when banks fail. And with great difficulties, people started putting money back into the banks after Lehman Brothers incident of 2008 and some cooperative bank in India. But once such incident happened, public loses faith, and it has become very difficult for hard-earned money which people had put in the banks. And if it goes bankrupt, it is a difficult. Second thing, why it has happened. So primarily, there are two reasons, which the entire report will be available maybe after a month or so, because Fed is carrying out all the forensic audit and other thing will be known. But one of the major reason is the SBO was having good amount of cash in hand last year or before.
ओके
So they have invested that money in the US securities and bonds. I'm talking of 2022 or so. Now, what was the situation at that time? As I said, SOFR rate was 0.05%, so bond rates was also in the lower range. Now the rate has gone up by around 4.5%, but their major investment was in the bonds, which were earning lower than what they are paying to the customer. So they were in a loss. So what was happening? One can say it is a judgmental error. The top management should have come out of those bonds or diluted their position from those bonds to the new bonds which are at a higher rates and minimize their losses. But why they have not done or how much they have done, it's too early to comment. But this is one of the reasons they were having a bonds which are much lower. So they are earning lower rate of interest and paying higher. So they were in a loss business.
Okay.
Second thing, this was known to top their management, and within a week or let's say within a month, their top 5 officers had diluted their equity for 20 to 40, 50%, and which also shows that bank was in a bad shape, and
They
they had
were
come out with their money, but the public is losing. This is one thing. Another thing is happening is the Credit Suisse, which you have raised with the
yes.
thing. Credit Suisse is in the news for the wrong reason from last more than a year. It is not just now. There, some of the decisions were questionable, and their own countries are also not happy. The regulator was not happy with their way of working. So they are having a credibility issue, and they are in financial crunch. Now, this thing get more complicated after SBO and other banks which has gone, in the last week or so. Now, one of their major investor is the Saudi.
Okay.
Now, after all this thing, news and other things, Saudi, as per the first preliminary report, Saudi has refused to infuse more money.
Okay.
Now, reason given is that we do not want to increase beyond 10% limit, but whether it is right or wrong, but with this news, the situation is getting worsening for Credit Suisse.
गिरीश जी एक बात बताओ, मतलब जब मैं आईएम में कोर्स कर रहा था उस टाइम पे भी कई लोगों से जैसे मेरी मुलाकात हुई, एक डॉक्टर श्यामल राय, मतलब वो तो बहुत ही नोटेड इकोनॉमिस्ट है, वो एक बात कहते थे और मैं आज आपसे वो बात पूछना चाहता हूँ। कहते कि जो इकोनॉमिक है, स्पेशली जो मैक्रो इकोनॉमी है, वो काफ़ी हद तक सेंटिमेंट्स का विषय है, इन द सेंस कि बैंकिंग सिस्टम में अगर हमारा फेथ नहीं है, सपोज सब डिपॉजिटर्स अपना अपना पैसा वापस ले लें किसी बैंक से, है ना, मैं कहता हूँ कि चलो ये जो आपका एसवी बैंक जो है, ये सिलिकॉन वैली बैंक, ये डूबने जा रहा है, तो जितने भी डिपॉजिटर हैं वो सब लाइन लगा के अपना अपना पैसा वापस कर लें, और उसके बाद इन एनी केस बैंक तो बैठ ही जाना है। अब बाद में उनको पता चलता है कि वो न्यूज़ तो गलत है। मतलब आप गलत खबर फैला के या सेंटिमेंट्स को खराब करके किसी की भी कंट्री की इकोनॉमी को आप बैठा सकते हो।
Yes, you are right, sir. This is very correct. One of the reasons for Silicon Valley Bank failure is also such rumor that they are a shortage of fund and other things, and that there is a long queue outside there, and it was difficult. I remember a long back there was a very good famous author who has written books like Airport, Banks, and Oil and other things. In that also they have faced this similar situation. I'll
Okay.
just quote a particular thing. Same situation, that novel I had studied in my college time. It says there was one banker when they were having a US banker. There some rumor was gone that bank is having shortage of money and other thing. So people were standing, queues were there that they wanted to come out. And at that time, this digital banking and instant transaction was not there. You have to go to your branch and take money from bank and your particular branch only. I'm talking of this is more than a 30, 35 years old novel, or maybe more than that. Bank is a name. So what CEO did, he asked all the banks branch that you put a bundle of USD, means hundreds of $1,000 currency on the table of the branch manager.
Okay.
And when banks open, public will see money. That then the rumor which was there, they will see, oh, it's not that bad. Means they are saying money is lying there, and they said anybody whosoever is want, they can get their money. So what has happened? The people who had come just because of the rumor that go and bring out your money, they say, oh no, it's not. There is sufficient money with this branch. I need not to worry. And more than 50-60% has gone back. The moment people gone back, all those problem was, handled in a different way. The same thing is happening in today's time also. Now, what Adani is doing or what other people are doing, if you let me just give you a brief of what has happened in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks time in Adani. If you look at the stock which was going every day, lower circuit was hitting, and it has, lost more than 60%, 70% of its market equity. They did two wonderful things. I'm not talking about the business model, I'm just talking about the strategy to handle their position.
Okay.
They have made a road show in Singapore and in Hong Kong.
Okay. Hong Kong
And Singapore,
अच्छा.
and they have made a commitment from their major investor around $1.5 billion.
Okay.
This gives an hope to the other people कि okay, the situation is not that bad after that Hindenburg report, that still there are people who are aware of the nitty-gritty of the banking and companies business and other thing. They are still ready to pay land more than 1.5 billion US dollar. So that gives them a special impression. The public image, as you rightly said, sentimental was changed. And then they had another deal with the GQG, which is another investor from US.
Okay.
Now, that is the masterstroke, let me tell you. Why? Because anybody can buy from the market, any share which is on lower, any company can buy at a lower price which is available in the market. But the deal was between these two investor and the family, Adani family. Now, what it shows? It shows that investor is having a faith in the owner. Otherwise, he would have purchased the same items from the market, but he has purchased it from the family. And what was good for the family means it says that they are having a good investor, and more than a $1.5 billion invested by one investor only from US. And so it gives a totally different message that companies are ready to pay. And now what has happened, they have repaid all their, means preponed, I will not say at timely, but before time they have repaid their loan.
Okay.
Which was due in March or sometime in 2023 or later.
Okay.
So that gives a different message. So in spite of all the market worldwide, after Silicon Valley Bank and other thing, the market is down. But this companies are doing and going against the trend. And this is the thing. So sentimental handling is very important. What you rightly said is the one thing. And that helps if it has been messages conveyed properly. Another point I like to say that US, Europe, they are doing and continuing, as I understand from their message and the statement, that they will continue with the rate hike. Now, this is to handle the inflation. But at the same time, we have to be very, very careful. The treatment should not be deadlier than the disease. Now, what is happening is this treatment of this inflation is hurting their business, is hurting their banks, and is there hurting. So that's the reason I said Reserve Bank of India is doing better than many other things, because their treatment of handling the inflation is far better than other countries. So again, I am repeating, treatment should not be deadlier than the disease. Yes, please.
ये तो जब आप मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ते हो तो ये अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है कि मार्केट में लिक्विडिटी आप कम करो, ज़्यादा करो, बिकॉज रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन घट रहा है, बढ़ रहा है. इसके लिए तो बहुत सारे मतलब टूल्स भी अवेलेबल हैं, बट उसके अलावा एक फाइन जजमेंट भी चाहिए. और मेरे ख्याल से रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया ने वो जजमेंट जरा ढंग से अप्लाई किया. बट मैं एक चीज़ देखता हूँ गिरीश जी, मैं सेंटिमेंट्स की जब बात करता हूँ ना, तो आप देखो जो सोशल मीडिया है वो भी एक अच्छा खासा टूल है सेंटिमेंट को ऊपर नीचे करने का. मतलब नोबडी हैज मेंशन के अडानी ने ये सब किया, आफ्टर ऑल क्यों किया उन्होंने? इसीलिए किया जिससे इन्वेस्टर का या जो उनके शेयर होल्डर्स हैं या स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं उनका कॉन्फिडेंस उनकी कंपनी में बना रहे. यही तो पर्पज है. तो ये जो पॉजिटिव न्यूज़ है वो तो आती नहीं. और साथ में ये है कि जो लोग हैमर कर रहे हैं कि बार बार अडानी अडानी अडानी, प्रॉब्ली मुझे तो ऑनेस्टली ऐसा लगता है कि बीजेपी एक तरफ गई, मोदी एक तरफ गया, और बेसिक जो पर्पज हो जाता है वो हो जाता है किसी न किसी तरीके से जो मार्केट का सेंटीमेंट है उसको डाउन किया जाए. अब मैं मानता हूं कि आप पॉलिटिकल कमेंट नहीं देना चाहेंगे, बट मुझे ऐसा लगता है, मेरा ये असेसमेंट है. तो चलिए ये तो एक बात होगी, बट आपको क्या लगता है अब ओवरऑल, आपको क्या सिनेरियो लगता है ये मार्केट का, वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी मार्केट का और इंडिया का एज सच? एंड दिस इज गोइंग टू बी योर लास्ट कमेंट.
See, to me, First and most important factor which is impacting worldwide is the Russian-Ukraine war. This is continuing and it will have an impact. And it is having a harsh impact on all of us, whether we like it or not. Only thing is difference in somewhere it is more impact and less, but it is impacting all over the world. Second thing, it can have another impact on the food security. Why I'm telling food security? Because Russia, Ukraine are one of the major exporter of food grains apart from Canada and US. Now, when these two major countries are not able to provide, then it will have another impact. Third impact, which is now rate of interest when it is going high. So companies will find it difficult, and it may happen that borderline case, banks may be under stress because some of the in a normal time when the business is going well, they are working on a certain margin. When the rate of interest, let's say at 5% was going on, when suddenly it become 8%, their cost of business is going up. They may find that it is difficult to repay their loan and other things. So this will impact the banking sector. So it is a ripple impact. Or government has to be very careful of each country to see that the impact should be minimal.
रियली थैंक यू सो मच। और मुझे लगता है कि जो आरबीआई का गवर्नर है उसका काम तो ऐसे टाइम पे बहुत ही डिफिकल्ट हो जाता होगा। इकोनॉमी तो देखो सेंटीमेंट का इशू है, हम लोग जितने पॉजिटिव सेंटीमेंट में रहें उतनी इकोनॉमी ज़्यादा ग्रो करेगी। सो थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक यू।